All right, it seems like we are good to go on my end, and whenever you're ready, I'm ready.
All right, who's gonna do opening statement first?
Up to you. I'll defer.
I mean, I'll go first if you don't mind. That's fine. I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
care.
sure. Sithis does opening statement first, and then you do, and then you just free for all, I guess.
All right, guys, Sithis here, and in this debate, I'm going to be arguing for the position that taxation is theft. And now, before people immediately react to that, I want to make it very clear what I actually mean.
Hey, Sithis, are you able to turn on your camera by any chance? I'm sorry to interrupt.
Sure. Give me 1 sec.
I would appreciate it if you did. It would help the video.
Yeah. I don't. I have to do the OBS virtual camera, and then turn that on. Now can well I can't see I don't have my camera on because I don't know how to do it while I have it on my live stream.
Yeah. So basically, for your virtual camera, just set the scene to like a personal just camera scene. Just create like a personal camera scene. Have it grab your camera. You see what I'm saying?
Okay. And maybe I could just.
Yeah, you just do the OBS virtual camera. You were correct. You just have to change the scene to like just a scene with just your camera or whatever you want to add to it. It'll just help the video. That's all. That's all.
That's okay.
I'm bringing that up.
That's fine. It's gonna take me maybe a second.
Okay. I do have a and I'm also currently in the process of someone trying to dox me. Usually people try to dox me. Especially people who are on the right, they like to dox me. So just sorry, I apologize.
Yeah, that's not cool. I'm not with that. Unplug. Unexperienced I am with all this. For some reason, it's not working on my second scene, but it's working on my first scene. So, and I don't really know how to fix it. Sorry, man.
Sorry, you said it's
like when I go to my second scene, it doesn't. It's not.
So when you hit the gear icon, sorry, let me just. I have to reject the call. Hold on. I apologize. I got all sorts of stuff going on. Yeah, I just gotta go to set to do not disturb for now. Sorry, I normally take calls on my show, so let me just disable my phone for a sec. Okay. So you have virtual camera turned on?
Yeah.
And you select the scene?
Yeah.
Of just your camera?
Yeah, but when I put
like
the camera,
output selection?
when I go into source OBS and then I click devices, like it's on the camera, but it's just not showing anything. But then when I go to my first scene, it shows me.
So hold on. If you're
maybe if I turn it off on this
one, it
one,
should be set to scene, and your output selection should be selected to the scene that you've created.
Yeah, I know that, but it's not when the scene that it's showing, for some reason it's not letting my camera show. I don't know how to fix it.
Do you have your scene in another camera? Can you copy that camera onto the separate scene? Just like copy it and then put it in the separate scene and then display that. It should
Okay.
work.
Let me try that. Oh, my camera's acting. Oh, okay, I got it.
You got it? It's a little glitchy. Well, I don't know what's going on there.
You're in the background of the camera. Okay. Damn, now my camera's acting up.
You good?
Shit, bro. I don't know what's up with my camera. Low budget and cap here. All right. So I am here. This is ANCAP. I mean, this is God, I can't even remember what the hell we're doing here. I am KingSithis, and we are having a debate here. I am going to be debating First Amender here. ANCAP Doggo is going to be the moderator, it seems. And yeah, that's pretty much that. So I'm ready whenever you are. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I believe you
So-
wanted to debate whether or not taxation is theft, so I'm going to defer to you for the starting, and then I will provide my intro.
All right, cool. Let me just check my YouTube and make sure everything's good real quick, and then I'll just start right away. Okay. So, my name is KingSithis. Hey guys, Sithis here. And in this debate, I'm going to be arguing for the position that taxation is theft. Now, people immediately react to that, and I want to be very clear about what I actually mean, because this isn't just a slogan, it's a logical claim. The core idea is actually very simple. You own yourself, and that means that you also own the products of your labor. And if you don't own the products of your labor, then nobody has the right to take, if you own the products of your labor, then nobody has the right to take it from you without your consent. That's it. It's the entire foundation. So the real question is not, do we like taxes? Do we fund taxes, or do taxes fund things that are useful? The question is, by what right does anyone take your property without your consent? If I walk up to you, take a portion of your paycheck and say it's for something important, we don't call it that a contribution. We call that theft. And if I add a threat, pay me or I will fine you, cage you, or use force against you, that doesn't make it any better. In fact, it actually makes it worse. Now, some people try to get around this by saying taxation is different because it's legal, or because it's voted on, or because it's necessary, or for a host of other reasons. But legality doesn't determine morality. At various, the current legal law does not determine morality. At various points in her history, all kinds of things were legal that were recognized as violations of rights. And voting doesn't magically transform something into consent. If 51% of people vote to take another person's property, and 49 and from the other 49, that doesn't automatically make it consensual. That means that the majority is doing something to the minority that they never really agree to. And necessity doesn't justify it neither. You can't justify taking someone's property just by claiming the end result is important. Because once you accept that logic, there's no clear limit. Anything can be labeled necessary. So what's left is with this. What we're left with is this. Taxation is the taking of property without the explicit consent enforced by the threat of force. And if we're going to be consistent, if we're going to apply the same moral standards to everyone, then we don't just get to call something different just because the group did it or is larger or calls itself the state. Now, in this debate, I'm happy to talk about how all these things are able to be funded without the state, but none of these answer the core issue. They don't answer the question, where does the right come from to take the property of someone else without their consent? Because if you can't answer that, then all you're doing is describing a system where force is used and then trying to justify it after the fact. So tax is not contribution, it isn't voluntary, and it isn't morally special. It's the same act that we should call theft in any other context. Just because it's done by an institution or a group of people or has been voted for does not make it not theft. All right, I'm finished.
Okay, and I guess it's my turn for an intro. So my name is First Amender. You guys can find me on youtube.com/@FirstAmender. If you like hearing progressive content, or if you just like hearing debate content in general, I would recommend to check out my channel. I will go ahead and drop my channel in side chat for all those that are new to me. So I like to start off with some definitional responses. Taxation equals the act of taxing. Tax is a charge that is usually of money imposed by an authority on persons or property for public purposes, a sum that is levied on members of an organization to defray expenses. Theft is the unauthorized taking of another person's personal property with the intent to permanently deprive them of it. Theft implies that whatever is being taken is presumed to be unauthorized, yet as all individuals that partake in a society, there are inherent benefits to be gained in that society. Namely, it is assured that you do not wake up to bombings of a separate society that wishes to harm you. You are presumed to have access to infrastructure that enables you to go to work, through roads, through the safety of regulation on cars, through lighting to ensure safe travel. Indeed, even in old age, you inherently benefit. The fact is that it is inevitable that you will likely benefit from the system of government. For example, you have a group of people who assist others in nursing homes and take care of them thankfully with the education in nursing that person has received. The nurse or caretaker has received public education. They went to community college or a university to establish an accredited degree to work on health. While you are infirmed, you can count on society in that while you cannot work, there are others able to assist you of adequate strength and education. The system requires money to be spent in order to uphold contract law, traffic laws, education requirements, ensurement that the education is real and not coming from a degree farm, etc. Even the very stairs you walk up and down with assistance has building codes and regulations to reduce harm. This requires enforcement and therefore money to enforce a safe and equitable society. Ergo, if you are to benefit from said society, either directly or indirectly, it is an economic duty to pay your taxes. Given that it is a requirement and that you benefit by law, by moral virtue, and by ethical standards, it is not unethical to require every individual of working capability and reasonable taxes levied upon every person. Ergo, logically, taxes are not unjust. You do not get benefits for free, and this requires taxation to ensure the benefits that you receive are given and a better society is met. One could likely argue that you can opt out of society and therefore not pay taxes further and not benefit from the system that has been built. After all, who am I to say that you have automatically signed up or that you have consented? Being born adequately is not consent. You could reasonably say that since that you did not consent to the benefits, you ought not be taxed. However, this is to presume society and yourself in a vacuum. We find ourselves born into an interdependent system in which you cannot reasonably exit from. The system enables things like private property rights and economic activity themselves. Without it, concepts such as ownership wouldn't even happen. Even if you had a log cabin in the middle of the woods, not hooked up to any municipal services or roads, you are still subject to being on the planet Earth, where you must share the water, the resources, and the air with others, including the giant coal plant that is deciding to settle near your house, causing air pollution. As a result, eschewing yourself from the system is not realistic, and regardless of consent or lack thereof, it is not relevant. Under a a consistent legal functional definition of theft, taxation does not qualify. And thank you. That's all I have.
All right. So if you don't mind me asking, so basically it seems like a lot of your argument is revolving around the idea that if you're benefiting from the service that the state is basically giving to you, that means that you, regardless of your consent, you should be made to pay.
It goes further than that.
Okay. So is that a yes
the
or
concept? No, the answer is no. The
Okay, so
concept
then
of
how do you determine it?
capitalism requires there to be, for example, private property rights. You can't have private property rights without there being like a monopoly of force to enable that without you having to concede to a Mad Max position. And so taxation would not be theft in that you can have a consistent society through taxation. So it is not the unjust or the I have here, it is not the unauthorized take-in. It's literally authorized by its very basis.
So the non-aggression principle essentially is one does not have the right to initiate force or initiate a conflict against any innocent person. If I haven't initiated force against any other person, if I haven't stabbed anyone, if I haven't attacked anyone, then I argue that no person has the right to extract any wealth from me, especially if I've gotten my stuff through two ways, right? There's two ways in which you could be the just owner from the libertarian ethic of some sort of scarce resource, which is one is original appropriation and through just transaction. So because I don't see the state getting any of its property through voluntary transaction or original appropriation, they didn't ask the people who were here to fund it consensually, because at the end of the day, a taxation always comes with a, if you do not do this, there's going to be punishment. And consent requires the ability to opt out of the situation. So for instance, if a guy comes up to you with a gun and he says, hey, I want your money in your pocket, even if I were to say, hey, sure, take it, don't kill me, I may be agreeing to that transaction, but I have not consented. And the reason why is because consent requires the ability to opt out. So because I don't have the ability to opt out, and the state is not the just owner of the land in which it is in possession of, and all the property in which I am in possession of, I got it through just means. The idea that they would have the right to snatch that thing from me or forcefully take it from me for any reason would be an initiation of unwanted force, which would be unconsensual. And and theft is the unconsensual taking of another person's property.
Okay. So I'm very well aware of the non-aggression principle. It's not new for me, but you do benefit implicitly by just simply being in the society. Just because you decide to opt out does not mean that you don't benefit. You also, within your axioms, presume things like contract law, which requires a monopoly of force and therefore money to do that. And so that would require some form of a government. And I guess like you could potentially argue, like maybe if you're arguing like a privatized government, a privatized court system, well, I then therefore could just have like a private court system that just agrees with me to take all your stuff. So there's no consistency in the law. And so, but that's beside the point. I guess like the question is whether or not taxation is theft. Considering you benefit from contract law, it would not be theft. It actually enables your existence of private property.
So again, you're basically saying because I benefit from the service from contract law and, benefit from the services that the state gives me, it doesn't matter about my consent. I should be forced to pay it.
Yeah, more or less. Sure.
So let's say you have a car and I see that it's like really, really dirty. And I go up to you and I take your car without your permission. I take it to the car wash and then I wash it without your consent. And then I take it back to you. Do you owe me 15? And I say that you owe me $15. Do you owe me $15?
Society is not the same as a car wash.
I didn't ask you that. I asked you, do you owe me $15?
I understand. I'm saying it's disanalogous. It's not analogous. I understand.
I'll tell you all it's analogous, but I just want a quick
this
answer
implies
to
that
this.
there is no. This implies that there is no that it exists in a vacuum. But the reality is to uphold the $15, to uphold ownership of the car, to uphold laws implying ownership, there needs to be a monopoly of force, and that's government, and that's upheld through taxation. So implicitly, even in your hypothetical, you kind of need taxation.
So I'm going to ask you the question one more time because you didn't really seems you didn't answer my question. My question was, let's say I take your car to the car wash without your permission and I wash it and then I take it back to you and then I say, hey, you owe me $15. Would you say I owe you $15?
No,
Why?
because I didn't ask you to.
So I took something without your consent that belonged to you. Even though you benefited from the service, I still don't have the right to take that thing from you, right?
That's correct.
So what makes this? What gives the state this right, or the people in
Because
the
we're
state
talking
this
about
right?
society, not a car.
Society is made up of people, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what gives the individuals in the state the right to to forcefully take things from other people
Again,
when they benefit? Whereas this,
you're
wait,
attributing
excuse me,
a car as
excuse me,
opposed to
sir.
all of society.
Excuse me, sir. I wasn't finished. So what I was going to say was, I'm not attributing a car to all society. I'm attributing the robber to all society, right? The robber did the exact same thing that the state did. He saw something that you could clearly benefit from. They used their money in order to basically wash it. You're benefiting from the service. He's coming up to you and he's asking, hey, you owe me now $15. What gives him, what gives the people within the state not the right to do that exact same thing, but this guy, no.
So once again, you are born into an interdependent system which you cannot realistically exit. I have already predicated that in my argument because I understand the car wash argument. The system enables property rights and economic activity in and of themselves. Without it, concepts like ownership and theft wouldn't function.
You don't need the state in order to protect property rights. You know that,
hold on.
right?
So taxes aren't violating your property rights. It's in fact enabling your property rights.
So you're basically making the claim that the only possible way to protect property rights is with a monopolistic state.
You need a monopoly of force, yes, of some kind.
So you're meaning to tell me that if I'm on my own property and I have a gun and a guy comes onto my property and I pull the gun out, beautiful cat, and sorry.
Appreciate it.
And I pull out a gun and I say, get the hell off my property. Would you say I didn't protect my property rights? What did I do there?
Okay, but I could just get more guys. Now
no,
what?
In that situation, what do you think I did there?
I guess you defended your property, but I could just get more guys.
Oh, okay. So I don't necessarily need a state in order to protect my property, right?
Yeah, you do. You do. Because if I get more guys, you got a big problem on your hands.
Okay, what if I have more guys?
Okay, so then I get more guys.
Okay,
so then what is it going to be? Is it going to be a giant war where we battle and it turns into Mad Max? This is the problem
but
of
fundamentally,
anarcho-capitalism.
I know.
Is that it ultimately results into like effectively a Mad Max situation when in reality it is taxation that enables property rights. You presume property rights when there is no predication to presume property rights. There needs to be a monopoly of force to ensure that that's not possible. For example, if I had 20 guys with guns and to take away your house and your stuff, well, more people will show up with guns. SWAT will show up. And if I can beat the SWAT, then the army will show up.
That's irrelevant to the point, right? The point here that I'm making isn't...
The question is whether or not taxation is theft.
Wait.
And it is not theft because by the very predication, it doesn't work because it requires taxes to have that.
Yeah, so that's not my point. My point is, if there's a guy, if I have a gun and I'm on my own property and a guy comes up to me and pulls a gun on me and he says, hey, I'm get off my property or I'm going to shoot you, and then he runs off. Would you say that's an example of me, you protecting my property?
Repeat that? My cat was pressing a button.
So maybe I said that wrong. So let's say a guy comes up to my house. He's going to rob me. I pull out a gun. I say, get the fuck out of here. And he runs off. Would you say that's an example of me protecting my property?
Yes.
Without the state?
Yes.
So therefore, it is possible to protect property rights without a state.
Okay.
Okay, so you can argue, oh, you can't meaningfully do it. Oh,
I mean, as
if
long
somebody
as
has-
everybody's
wait,
like
excuse
friendly
me,
enough, then maybe.
I wasn't
But
finished.
generally speaking, not necessarily. Like if I had
Okay,
enough guys,
you can argue.
they're just going to
Yeah, I get it. You can argue, oh, if you have more guys,
You have no predication to the existence of
I get what
property
you're saying.
outside of hoping that you have enough force.
Let's stop interrupting each other.
yeah. So I was going to say, you can say all you want. Oh, well, if somebody has more force than you, then they're going to take you over. Me and you can both agree with that. And that also applies to the state as well. If you have two states and one state wants to take over the other and one has less force than the other, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think they're just going to get along? They're just going to shake hands? No, that bigger state is going to take over the other one. So this whole idea, so the only thing that I'm disproving, I mean, I don't disagree with you. If somebody has a bigger gun than me, they could take me over. The only thing that I'm disproving is this claim that you need a monopoly on violence in order to protect property rights, whereas you do not need a monopoly on violence. There's private rights enforcement. You could use your own gun. There's, I mean, I could list a whole host of other ways.
There hasn't been a
your
single
property.
instance in anarcho-capitalist society where you can enforce
irrelevant.
property rights, but that literally
irrelevant.
is relevant because we're asking whether or not taxation is theft. You can't have property rights without taxation.
I just told you, you just agreed with me that you can. I
No,
just
because
gave
I
you
can
the
just come in with
example.
enough force and you're done.
It doesn't matter because that applies to the state as well. If there's a bigger state about to attack your state and kills it, right? Then that also applies to your state as well. If somebody has
that's
more,
what's called a
excuse me.
war, but
Whoa,
it's
whoa,
still
whoa,
an
whoa,
implication of property rights.
Excuse me.
The
If
state
somebody,
will still,
whoa, whoa, whoa,
regardless
whoa,
of whether
what's
or
up
not
with all
that the
this
state is at
What's
war.
up with all these interruptions, dude? Are you okay?
Well, you're not understanding my
No,
point.
let me finish and then I'll let you go. It's one at a time here, dog. So what I was going to say is, I agree with you. If somebody has more force than you, if a state has more force than you, yeah, they can enforce their will upon you. But that doesn't take away from the fact that you don't need a state to protect property rights. Now you can say, oh my God, a guy with a bigger gun is going to shoot you and take you out. Well, okay, I agree with that. But that doesn't change the fact that you can protect your property rights without a state. You don't need a state to protect property rights.
How exactly does taxation become theft? Because taxation is literally what protects property rights, not the other way around.
Well, if you're stealing property, you're violating property rights in order to protect property rights.
No, it's using taxes, a certain amount levied, to ensure that the monopoly of force protects your property and contract rights.
But what is theft?
Theft is the unjustified taking of a person's property.
If I don't consent, it's unjustified.
That's not true because you live in a society.
So what? Well, I don't owe anyone anything.
That's
I don't owe anyone anything.
Saying so what is not an argument.
I mean, what makes it okay for them to violate my consent?
Like, so what?
So what makes it okay for the society to violate my consent?
Because you live in an interdependent system.
Let's say I'm on my own land.
You're not alone in your own vacuum.
Let's say I live on my own land.
For example, if a coal company came to your land or next to your land and decided to destroy the resources that you're using, somebody has to be able to defend it. The coal company is going to have a lot more money than you.
And you agreed with this.
Okay, but again, somebody can effectively have more force than you. The coal company will have more force. You're saying something
that we both already agree with. We both already agree that if somebody has more force
with your taxes to ensure
you're looping.
That your property rights are not removed.
You're looping.
Just because you're a small guy doesn't mean that you don't have rights.
Okay, you're not making the argument that the government isn't stealing from you. You're making the argument that if they don't steal from you, excuse me. You're not making the argument that the government isn't stealing from me. You're making the argument that if the government doesn't steal from me, another larger force will take over my property and therefore I won't have property rights. But the idea is the state is the one also violating my property rights. What you're describing is essentially a mafia, whereas essentially the mafia comes up to you. Well, excuse me, good sir. What you're essentially describing is a mafia. The mafia goes up to innocent private businesses. They knock on each door and they say, hey, we are here to protect you. You're here to protect your property rights.
Arbitration
excuse me, sir. They're here to protect.
Like it's not a mafia.
And Captaldo, what's up with this? Why are you letting this guy interrupt me over and over again?
I mean, like if your entire predication is on the basis of
let me
something
finish
that is
my statement.
empirically false, then
I will leave if he doesn't allow
Like-
me to finish. The
why would you
hypothetical.
leave?
Jesus. Okay, Jesus Christ. Okay, so Sithis, continue what you were saying, and then you can respond, First Amender.
I was hoping he would be an adult about this. But anyways, what you're describing is essentially a mafia. A mafia basically knocks on your door and basically says, hey, we're here to protect your property rights, regardless of whether you want the service or not. And if you don't pay, we're going to break your legs. And hey, you should thank us, because if we don't do it, the guy down the street will do it to you too. Whereas it's like, wait a minute, you don't have a right to my property, and neither does the guy down the street. Just because the guy down the street might have more guns and might take me over doesn't give you the right to force me to pay you. Nobody has the right to force me to pay. And now go ahead.
Okay, so the government is not the mafia. Property rights are handled through civil matter and arbitration. Unless if you plan on resisting fines to the bitter end, there is no violent force.
What happens if I don't pay taxes?
I guess they could put you in jail.
Okay, so I'll get kidnapped. So they'll kidnap me.
But kidnapping implies that there's like an unjustified, but it is justified because you're benefiting from the system, albeit through
Am
your
I not
property
owed the
rights.
fruits of my labor?
Yes, you are owed the fruits of your labor,
so-
but
and
there's
if-
an
if
amount
the state
that
is taking it
garnered
away from
for
me.
society. There's an amount that is garnered for society because
gives
you
them that
benefit
right?
from the society.
What gives them that right?
Because you're benefiting from the society.
Oh, so then let's go back to the car wash example. So the car guy
It's
is
an
stealing.
interdependent system.
No, what gives this? What is different between the guy who
Why is
took
this
the
so
car?
hard for you to understand?
Why is it so hard for
It
you
is
not
an
to interrupt?
interdepe-
Why is it so
You're
hard for you not to
born into
interrupt?
an interdependent system in which you
You
cannot
don't want me to finish because you're
realistically
scared.
exit.
Let's just be honest.
That has nothing to do with that.
Then why
You're
won't
just
you let me
repeating
finish?
What you said.
No, you know where this is going and you're scared.
You need to address my position.
I'm trying to, but you're not
which is
allowing me to.
You're born into an interdependent system.
I'm trying
which
to,
you
but you're
cannot
not allowing me
realistically
to.
Exit, unless if you plan on, I don't know.
Yo, ANCAP Doggo, what the fuck is up
self-reporting
with
to
this guy?
Mars.
Stop meta talking. Okay, First Amender, like finish your statement and then respond, KingSithis.
You are born into an interdependent system in which you cannot realistically exit. So, unless if you plan on self-deporting to Mars and completely removing yourself from society, it's not going to happen. You're going to get taxed and you will receive the benefits from it.
Okay. It doesn't matter if I receive the benefits from it. It doesn't give the state the right to take my stuff. It doesn't take.
It does because it
doesn't-
enables
Whoa,
property
whoa,
rights.
Whoa, excuse me. That's why it doesn't give me, the state, the right to take my stuff. It doesn't matter if there's a guy down the street who, like the mafia example that I gave earlier, it doesn't matter because there's maybe a guy down the street that might have more guns and might take my stuff if they don't protect me. It doesn't matter, right? If I don't want to pay the mafia, if I don't want to pay the state, I should not have to.
Mafia.
If I want to protect myself, go on my own property and protect myself, I should not have to pay. If if the state decides to protect, what is up with this guy? Why won't he let me finish? Just because the state forces me to pay, or just because the state uses money that is stole from other people to protect, the borders or whatever, doesn't mean it has the right to take that money from me. I never asked for that service. I don't want that service. And if I'm on my own land and I got it through just means, they don't have any right to extract that from me. They are no different from the mafia. And to say, oh, because you're benefiting, well, again, we'll just go back to the car example. The car example is somebody stole your car is dirty. They took it to the car wash. They brought it back. Do you owe them $15? The reason why I'm bringing this up is because what sets that robber apart from the individuals in the state? What gives the people within the state the right to rob me, forcefully extract the fruits of my labor without my consent, whereas the robber is not allowed to? What gives them that right?
The washing your car example does not work because we're not talking about an individual car. We're talking about a complex interdependent system which you cannot realistically exit.
It doesn't matter.
Enables your property rights and economic activity.
What separates them from being like people?
Without it, ownership doesn't function. So that means you benefit from taxes. You benefit from
You benefit
taxation.
from the car wash.
Even if you try to absolve yourself from as much taxation as possible, in order to establish property rights, you have to work within the interdependent system. They enable property rights. Just because there's an amount that is taken for taxes doesn't mean they're violating your property rights.
If I do not pay taxes, even if I don't want the service, even if I don't ask for the services, the state will kidnap me and throw me into a cage. That's what you're advocating for. If you're basically saying you're advocating for the robber coming up to me, taking my car, washing it, giving it back, saying, "Hey, you need to pay this guy, and if you don't pay this guy, I'm going to throw you into a cage and kidnap you."
Hey, real quick, I have a dual. Are you able to go back down because that messed up my stream? I don't have KingSithis and sorry, apologies.
I don't.
So once again, sorry, can you repeat what you were saying, Sithis?
Reasonably enforce my rights without a state. It doesn't matter if the mafia down the street is able to violate my rights without the protection of the current monopoly on force or mafia that's forcing me to pay into their current system. And none of that matters. What matters here is whether or not I have the right to keep the fruits of my labor. If I do not want protection from the state,
right.
if I do
but
not
you can't
want
keep the fruits of your labor,
you asked me to explain something
rights.
and then now you're interrupting me again, dude. Yeah, I don't know what's up with my camera. I unplugged it and I don't know how to fix it. I'll figure it out later. But
you can't keep your property rights without there being a state to defend it.
It doesn't matter. We both agreed that you could
That's
protect your property without the state.
That there's an interdependent system.
It doesn't matter.
No,
it's
all
still
I gotta
theft.
do is have enough guys with guns. But the point is that the taxes would not be theft. You are benefiting from private property rights because the government enables the private property rights.
Yeah, so basically what you're describing is essentially a mafia. A mafia goes up to private property owners.
This is as a civil litigation process. This is nothing to do with wanting to extort people of their money and then holding a gun to their face. It has nothing to do with that.
That's what the state does if I don't pay taxes.
No,
that's what the state does.
No.
Well, okay, so then what gives them the right to rob me, but the robber not?
Resist.
What gives them the right to rob me, but the robber not? What gives them the right to
robbing you?
What gives them the right to take my?
You establish private property rights by them taxing you.
No, I don't. They're taking my money without my
requires money.
They're taking my money without my consent.
Police. It requires money to have judges.
You don't need a state to do that.
To have, yes, you do.
No, you don't.
Okay, so all of it should be private.
You don't need a state in order to protect property rights. Yes, but you don't need a state to protect property rights. You agreed with this.
Okay, I have a court that says all of KingSithis' stuff is mine, and because I have the local jurisdiction, now what you gonna do?
That's irrelevant to whether or not what we're talking about.
What you gonna do? What you gonna do? Right?
I mean, there would be competition in the market, but that's completely irrelevant.
I bought out the competition.
Do you want to hear the argument or no?
Please do, because it doesn't make any dang sense.
Yeah. So what you're making is a circular argument. You're basically saying, you can protect property rights without the state, but you can't protect property rights without the state. That's why they need to force you to pay. But it's just like
no, you asked if whether or not it was possible with a gun. Sure, I guess if it's like an individual and they were unarmed and you were armed,
correct?
Maybe you could protect it. But I don't know. What if somebody just says, "Okay, well, I'm just going to destroy your air quality.
Okay, it doesn't matter.
I'm going to destroy your local resources.
Theoretically,
I just happen to destroy your property, and there's no arbitration method to determining who's at what fault. Do you see the problem?
All right, so here's where we agree. It seems you don't need the state to protect property rights. But you believe that it's okay for them to take your property without your consent because without them, you can't protect property rights.
What happened to your camera?
I turned it off because it was fucking up.
Okay.
So what I was going to say is you're holding two contradictory beliefs right now. You're saying that you should be allowed to own the fruits of your labor, which means that you have the right to your property rights. But then the only way to protect that right is through the state. But actually, you can protect the property rights without the state. But the only way that you can protect your property rights is with the state. So what is it? Like, If I'm a guy on my own property and I have a gun and I scare that guy off, is that not an
Yeah, but
example?
you're asking
Is that
me
is
to
that not
operate-
an example of me protecting my property rights without the state?
You're asking me to provide an answer to your hypothetical. It's possible for you to not involve the state at all and to just shoot the guy. In which
Yeah,
case,
so it
like,
is possible to have
I mean, let me ask
protect
you
people
this,
without
right?
the state, right?
Let
To
me
protect
ask
your
you this.
property
Let's
without
try-
the state.
what do you-
Wait, I
what
just
do
want a
you do
quick
in a
yes.
situation of-
Wait. I
Hold
just
on,
want a
you're
quick
the-
yes or
you're-
no to
you-
this.
You got upset
Can
at
you
me
protect the
interrupting
property
you
without the
constantly.
state?
Now all of a
Yes or
sudden,
no?
when I'm mid-explanation, now it's a problem. Okay.
No, just want a quick yes or no to this. You can protect your property without the state, correct?
It is possible, yes, and I've
Okay,
brought
got
that
you.
up. I've already said yes to that. I don't know why you're asking again the same
Okay, so we
question
don't
as
need-
if I did not already answer this.
So the state forcing me to pay taxes in order to protect me. I mean, that's a forceful extraction of my wealth into the state for something that I don't necessarily need them to do, right?
It is forceful, but it is an interdependent system. Taxes don't violate your property rights.
Did I
They
ask for them?
enable them.
Okay, but
You don't have
you
to-
Agreed,
you don't
you
have-
literally
you don't
agreed
have to.
yourself. You literally agreed yourself that you don't need the state to protect property rights. But then now
Okay,
you're saying the only
let
way
me
you can
ask you
protect
this.
property rights is under the
Somebody
state. So
walks
what
up
is
to
it?
your somebody walks up to your to your nice friendly little cottage in the middle of the woods, and they stomp on all your on your tulips. You've been working on those tulips for months. Do you have a right to shoot them?
If that's my property, absolutely. So if that guy's refusing to leave, yeah, absolutely.
Are you serious? Are you
Yeah,
being
if he's
serious?
refusing, if he's
You think that
refusing
you
to
could
leave,
shoot someone to death because they stomped on your tulips?
well, maybe not for that, but if he's refusing to leave, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I believe in self-defense, but fundamentally,
All right.
the question isn't about
What if
self-defense.
they're what if they're
Wait.
turning around and run?
Wait.
No, I want to see where this goes. What if they're
Oh my God,
turning
this has
around
nothing
and
to-
running?
Self-defense has nothing to do with
What if,
this.
for
Talk
example, like they stomped on your tulips and you said,
This has
"Hey,
nothing to
get
do
off
with the
my
discussion.
property," and they turned
And
around and
Capdoggo.
I'm just curious.
No, this has
And they
nothing
started
to do with
turning
the
around and
discussion.
running. Do you have a right to shoot them then?
This is
What does this have
switching the
anything to do
goalposts.
with?
Let's-
What does this have anything
let's-
to do with
It's not
taxation?
moving the
theft?
goalpost. It's not
let's
moving the
move back to
goalpost
the original
because the
conversation.
entire predication of the argument is whether or not taxation is theft. And if you're willing to argue some sort of
You're shifting the
arbitration
goalpost.
that ought to exist regarding property rights, then there must be something outside of just KingSithis and his gun. He just sat there and said that you can murder somebody for stomping on some tulips.
Okay,
And
maybe
who's
not.
to
Well,
say-
okay, you're
What
being
happens
obtuse.
in- what
Obviously, I
happens
don't
in
think that you could
instances-
kill
No, it's
someone
not.
for
I'm
just
not being
simply.
obtuse. It's what you said.
Oh my
You
God,
just
you're
said it.
ridiculous, dude.
But let's say,
I
for
believe in
example,
self-defense. I
what
believe in
what
protecting
if,
your
for
property.
example,
Yes.
that they're running
This
away?
has
What
nothing
would
to
you-
do
would
with
you-
the topic, dude. What does this have
Okay,
to do
but
with
what-
taxation
where
and
is your-
theft?
Where is your arbitration that happens, right? If
What
somebody
does
stomps
this-
on the
what
tulips,
does this have to
what
do
is
with
the
what-
arbitration?
what does
is
this
the
have to do with
arbitrary body?
taxation and theft?
How does it work?
This has nothing to do with whether or not taxation is
It
theft.
does.
No,
It
it
does.
doesn't.
It has everything to do with it. How
Okay.
do you arbitrate somebody stomped on your tulips?
Private arbitration. Now, can we go back to the actual topic?
So what? Do you
This
have a
has nothing to do-
conversation with the guy?
This has nothing to do with the topic.
This-
What we're
so
talking
So do you
about.
have a conversation with
Dude.
the guy?
You can answer the question, Sithis. This is relevant to the argument he's making. Sorry.
I mean,
It is entirely
obvious-
relevant. Yes.
How is this relevant to the conversation?
It is relevant to the conversation. So
How?
do you talk to that? What do you do?
For what?
They stomped on all your tulips. You worked
You
on
tell the
those for
person to
months.
leave. You tell the person to leave, and if they say I am not going to leave, then you pull out your gun. You say, "Hey, if you don't leave, I'm going to shoot you." And then if
Okay.
they refuse to leave, then yeah, you would have the right to shoot that person because
Okay,
you
so
own
you
your
worked on
property.
all so you worked on all those tulips for months. I stomped on your tulips, and then you pulled out your gun. You say, "Hey, leave my property," and then I say, "Okay," and then I leave.
No, you wouldn't have. I wouldn't have the right to shoot you. No.
Okay, well, wait, what? On what basis?
Because you decided to leave.
On what basis?
Wait, well, what does this have to do with taxation as theft?
It has everything to do with it. It
How?
really does.
Okay, how?
It has everything. Hold on a sec. I'm getting I think someone's knocking at my door. Can you give me a quick second?
Okay. I'm not sure what self-defense has to do with
Actually,
taxation.
I'm not going to
It's
answer.
theft.
It's fine. No. So once again, so on what basis do you have to with the guy who stomped on your tulips?
I am allowed to keep the fruits of my labor. If I worked on those tulips, if I bought them or got it in through just means, that person doesn't have the right to destroy that thing.
No, I didn't like the smell, and that's why I got rid of them.
That doesn't give them the right to take that thing from me.
Purple's an ugly color.
Okay, but what does this have to do with taxation is theft? I just want
I'm
to know
saying
that.
there's a disagreement. What do you do in the semblance of a
I know
disagreement?
that I understand that, but what does this have to do with whether or not taxation is theft?
Well, the problem is that you need something to arbitrate the situation.
So you're saying
Whatever
the only
that
way
something is, some sort of unbiased source that is able to have an arbitration between the two bodies, and they make a decision.
Okay, so you're saying
That's
the
what
only
it
way
is.
to have that is through a state.
Well, currently the situation is through a state.
That's
I
not what I
guess if
asked
you wanted to argue like a privatized, theoretical privatized system that would inherently also tax you, by the way, in order to use their service, you would have to pay for that service to then have the said arbitration on your tulips.
Okay, paying for a service is not a tax, right? If I go to a store and I ask
It
them,
is
hey,
if you're inherently
excuse me,
benefiting
whoa,
from
whoa,
that
whoa.
system.
Excuse me. If I go to the gas station, local gas station, and I buy a Snicker bar, they're not taxing me. They're not forcing me to pay anything. I chose to buy their Snicker bar in exchange for my money. Whereas with the state, they're forcing upon me a service.
But we're not talking about a Snicker bar.
Whoa, excuse me.
We're talking about property rights.
Excuse me. I'm not finished. So whereas with the state, if they forcefully take my money, use that money for services that may or may not benefit me, and then they force me to pay even further to justify that theft, basically to justify saying, hey, we gave you the service, so therefore you need to pay us, for further services. It's not the same thing. So if I go to a private arbitration firm and I ask, hey, could you look over this dispute that I have with me and my neighbor? I'm paying them for a service that I asked for. They're not making me pay ahead of time and then saying, hey, you're benefiting from the service that you might, have, and then we're going to charge you anyways. That's not how that works.
All right. So if you use a road, you should pay for it. If you are in an HOA, you need to pay for it. If
the owner wants you to
use any courts, you have to pay for it.
If the owner wants you
what
to,
about
yes.
traffic laws? Do you have to pay every time you pass by a stoplight or stop signal, or do you need to pay? Like, how does this work?
If the owner wants you
for
to,
every individual thing that you enjoy?
If the owner wants you to, yes. Fundamentally, you don't have the right to extract wealth. I mean, you could say it's insane, but I think it's equal.
Yeah, I mean, it's not practical at all. Like, not even remotely practical.
Can I finish my sentence? Let me finish.
It kind of tells me that like the
sentence.
action of taxing is
and Cat
definitely
Doggo, why
not.
are you allowing this guy to continuously interrupt me, man?
It's wild, bro.
I thought you told me you were not going to let this guy interrupt me.
Okay. Continue speaking and then respond first.
Like, what the fuck, dude? You told me you weren't going to let him interrupt me, and then you're kind of like slacking. Not going to lie, bro.
There's been a little bit of interruption on both parts here. Okay.
We'll try to clean it up.
We'll try to clean it up, yeah.
All right. So all I'm saying is that fundamentally, right, you're going up to people. The state is going up to people. They're saying, hey, you need to pay for our services. And if you don't like it, then we're going to kidnap you and throw you in a cage. And you're basically saying that's fine because if those people don't do it, then a larger force.
Because these are civil matters.
Whoa. See.
Just let him finish his point, and then you can respond.
I've already addressed this. I don't know what else to say to KingSithis. I've already addressed this.
Okay, then why are you allowing him to keep talking?
Just let him restate his point. You can restate.
Okay,
yours,
yeah, I'll just let him kind of talk indefinitely and not change any of his points, despite the fact that I've already addressed his point.
That's fine. You could say you addressed that point, but that doesn't give you the right to interrupt me.
Let's stop.
I guess that's
We're trying to talk. Wait, hold on. Okay, wait. Let's get it back on track. It's not meta talk. Sithis, restate your point, and then First Amender.
You guys are doing a terrible fucking job. Holy cow! I don't know if I'm gonna do this again.
We're literally helping you speak right now, Sithis. So.
Yeah,
I
don't know if I'm gonna do this again. But all I'm gonna say is that fundamentally, I mean, he's not even here anymore. Like, what the fuck?
I'm right here. I can hear you.
He can hear you. Just restate your point, okay?
All right. all I was going to, I don't even remember my point at this point, because he just kept interrupting me. Although the only point is that you're basically saying that this group of people, they're forcing you to pay into a system, and they're going to use that money in order to protect you, and that is perfectly okay, because if they don't do it, then another group is going to force you to or violate your property rights. Whereas I'm saying
No.
that doesn't then, just because another group may with a larger force might have the right to force you, might have the ability to force me to give up my stuff, or or do things I don't want to, does not then give the state the right to force me to pay them to protect me. If I don't want the protection, I don't, I shouldn't be forced to pay for it.
Okay. So the taxes enable private property rights. It's not reasonable to presume for every single benefit in society that you ought to pay individually for that service. It's kind of just stacked into one thing. And if you don't want to engage in that, then I suppose you could go live in Mad Max world, where there literally would be no property rights outside of a gun. On something as simple as, I don't know, some guy stomping on your tulips, you were very quick to want to kill that person because they stomped on your tulips. But then you're like, okay, well, maybe not kill him. Maybe you just want to, I don't know, get into an argument with him, or justify why you ought to own those tulips, and that maybe that this violates the person's eyes. Maybe they don't like how the tulips look. I mean, there's all sorts of reasons why that there's articles and stipulations and contracts to ensure that people get along, and this requires taxation to do so. It is not theft. It actually enables property rights, not the other way around.
I just want a quick yes or no to this. If, say, I'm on my own property, I have a group of guys with guns, and a guy comes and tries to rob it, and we pull our guns out and we say, get the fuck out of here, and he runs off. Would you say that's an example of me protecting my property without the state?
You've already asked this. I've already said yes.
Okay, so this whole idea that you can't protect your property without the state, therefore they have the right to take from you, is nonsense, even from your own standpoint.
Well, no, because I just need enough people that are motivated enough with enough
irrelevant.
force, and then you wouldn't be able to protect this.
So then you are making the point that I made. The point that I made, which I will reiterate again, which is what you're saying is the state. This group of people, which is the state, they have the right to rob me, not rob me, take my property from me without my consent, because if they don't do it, another larger force will violate my property rights. And you're saying that's okay. And you're saying that's perfectly okay.
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay, so then you're against taxation now?
Because like a lot of this is civil arbitration. Taxation enables property rights.
I don't understand what you're not getting, dude. We already agreed you don't need the state to protect property rights, correct?
No, so against an individual. But if there's
you
more,
you could have
then
private rights
you would
enforcement
need
agencies, right?
people to help you.
You've never heard of a
You
militia?
would likely need either a. Okay,
Do you know what a militia is?
So you are so rather than having the unjust system of private property, what we should have is the very just militia. And then we all walk around with our own militias and we fight each other so it's like a Wild West or
That's
like a Mad Max.
That's irrelevant. What I'm saying is,
but do you understand that results in less property rights, not more?
Listen, it is possible to get a group of people like the state and protect property rights as maybe, say, a rights enforcement agency or an insurance firm. It is perfectly possible for a group of people to privately run a firm in which they protect people for a fee. You think that's possible?
I suppose so. I just think it's rather impractical.
I mean, you could say it's
because all I have to do is have a big enough militia force to say, well, we don't care about your stuff. And in which case you argue for Mad Max. We have taxation to ensure that there is a monopoly of force, and that doesn't happen. So way your property rights
stabbing
are
a person
protected.
Isn't practical
you
for a stabber.
The existence of property rights and contract law on the basis that there is something there that can even enable that protection to begin with. Without it, it's just a piece of paper. It's just two people agreeing to something
That's
without
true
there
about the
being any
Constitution,
backing
too.
to it.
I
Yes,
Okay.
you need to have a monopoly of force.
No, you don't.
Otherwise, it's just a piece of paper. Yes,
Not even
that's
the
literally
state
how it
isn't even
works.
a monopoly on force. There's multiple
Yes, it
states on this
is.
world. There's multiple states
What
in this world.
the United
only one-
States
we
of
have a one
America
world
is
government.
is
We-
the monopoly of force.
Not in the world.
If we're in the United States, we are
Not
the
in the
monopoly
world.
of force.
Not in the world.
Okay, but we're not the entire world, and we're
We're living in the
separated by
world, right?
geographic boundaries. Okay,
But we're living
there
in the
are
world, right?
arbitrary borders that we have established where certain people are in certain places, and we happen to be in the United States. Inside
let's
the
say I
United
live in
States,
Canada.
the United
Is the
States
United
government
States the
has the
monopoly on
monopoly of
force on
force
me?
because they have a multi-trillion-dollar military and multi-billion-dollar police force and an entire justice system that ensures your property rights. You directly benefit from this, and so therefore you are taxed because that costs money to maintain.
If I live in Canada, is the United States a monopoly on force against me? On me?
I guess if the United States wanted to invade Canada, then yeah.
As of currently.
As of right now, no. The United
so then
States
the
would not
United
have
States
a
is not a
monopoly of
monopoly
force.
on
It would be
force.
Canada that has a monopoly of force on you. The point is that there is a
So
national
there's
government
multiple monopolies
that
on
controls
force. So there isn't a
that
monopoly.
monopoly of force. Yes, it's called a geographic monopoly of geographic monopoly. Do I really need to?
Well, there may be
Do
a
I need to
but it's not.
specify
It
that?
may
That's
not
pretty
be a
obvious.
global monopoly, right?
Okay,
force.
but I'm talking about a geographic monopoly on force.
So even on the world, technically,
I think it's the
we
same
don't
thing.
have
I don't
a
know why it
monopoly.
matters the
Hold on.
distinction.
You'll hear my argument. Even in the world, technically, we don't have. If we take the whole world, for example, we don't have a monopoly on force, and yet
You do. I mean, I guess if you predicate a geographic monopoly, you would have a monopoly on force.
did I say I'm not? I'm specifically saying world, the world, not geographic. I said the
I
world.
mean, there's no one world government if that's what you're
Exactly.
asking.
So we have multiple different governments, right?
Yeah.
And even in that, we don't have a monopoly
that have
in the world. We
monopoly
don't
of
necessarily
force,
have a
which is
monopoly
the
of force.
geographic
So then
monopoly
how
of
is
force.
it? So then how is it that these states are able to protect property rights if they're not necessarily a monopoly on force?
Because
in
you
the whole
live in a
world?
geography where they have the most force.
Yeah, but there
Why is this so difficult?
but there are states that live next to each other that don't go to war with each other, right?
Yes.
So they protect
Treaties
property
and
rights.
Agreements. Agree. Yes.
Okay. So fundamentally,
International
the point
bodies
that I'm
and
trying to
standards.
make is that you don't necessarily. I mean, you could ideally, like even if you believe that it's impractical or unnecessary or maybe more work than is needed, you could theoretically
Mind you, right,
rather
to have,
excuse me.
and just
Wait,
FYI,
I'm
to
not
have
finished.
treaties and agreements, it would require there to be decision makers on behalf of people, which would also imply a government and therefore taxation, because that also
Okay.
costs money.
So obviously,
Finish
theoretically,
finish your statement, and then first can respond. Okay.
yeah. So obviously, like what I was going to say is, even theoretically, you could get a group of people, you can make a company, and you can say, hey, as opposed to forcing you to pay, you could pay us a certain amount of money, voluntarily, and then we could protect you. Do you think that's possible?
You can pay us a certain amount of money and then we'll protect you. I suppose in theory it's possible. I just think it leads to a Mad Max world and would actually result in a reduction of private property rights.
Yeah, so
It
then
would
we
be
don't
better
need
to it would be better to just provide taxation and a monopoly of force to ensure more property rights, not less.
Yeah, so then we don't necessarily need to violate people's rights in order to have property rights, right? We don't need to force people to pay into a system in order to have property
I'm saying
rights,
that
right?
it would inherently violate people's property rights because you basically just invented Somalia or Mad Max. Like the lack of a government and forceful arbitration through the power of a gun and militia forces that say, we are the law here. You've basically just made your own de facto government, except likely much more violent.
You do
as
realize
opposed
that
to
it's
like
voluntary,
an-
right?
a body of a democratic source, and they take taxes, and you have more property rights as a result.
So fundamentally, the argument that I'm making here is even you agree that it is theoretically possible for a group of people to protect another group of people using their money in a consensual way without necessarily using force in order to do that. So that completely defeats your claim, right? The claim that you made that the only way to protect property rights is through a state, right?
I'm able to operate in hypotheticals and understand that, okay, in theory, it could be possible, but it would result in less property rights. And so, again, because you're talking about an interdependent system,
so you're
which
making a
defends
consequentialist
property
argument.
right, because you're talking about an arbitration of defending property rights. Taxation would not be theft.
Okay. So you're basically saying that because even though, you know, it is possible for us to, you know, have a private rights enforcement agency and things like that, you know, because of how hard that would be, and, you know, because the state protects property rights more, it is okay for that, even though the state may violate property or take people's stuff without their consent a little bit, on the grand scheme of things, they protect property rights as a whole. So even though there's a small bit of violation
they would
of property
protect
rights,
property rights more efficiently than the militia body, whatever
so
you're
basically
talking
you're
about.
saying that, so consequentially, you know, it's better to have the state than the militia, right? I'm assuming.
No, it's not arguing on the basis of consequentialism. It's showing how taxation is not theft.
No, I'm
taxation enables private property
you
rights,
do
not
agree,
the other way around.
but
It would
you
not
do
be
agree
theft.
that
It is not an unauthorized taking of another person's personal property, right? You're literally benefiting by having a government with a monopoly of force.
Okay, we both agree that we ought have the right to keep the fruits of our labor, right? If the state comes up to us and says, you don't have a choice in whether or not you fund this thing that we want to be funded, right? That is an unconsensual taking of another person's property. You could say it's not theft, right? But it is unconsensual. If I don't...
The problem is the fact that it's an interdependent system. You can't just, if it was all in a vacuum and that the entire economy was just one person per one person, that would be one thing.
I mean,
but
it's made up of people, though. The state is made up of people, right?
It's a society of people, and we work together to lead to better outcomes. That's what we do.
Okay, so you're making the... So you're basically saying, like, because there's better outcomes with a state than not having a state, then we should go with the state, basically, essentially. Even though it might violate rights sometimes.
Because we're talking about not utilitarianism or any of that jargon. We're talking about whether or not taxation is theft.
Well,
and,
it is the unconsensual
justifiably,
taking of
considering it protects property rights, then it is not theft.
Okay, so
In
then
fact,
what gives them the right to take it?
It's the exact opposite. It would actually enable private property rights.
For them to have the right to take my stuff, right, even without my consent, they would have to be owed that thing. What gives them the right to take my thing in the first place?
Because you are receiving a service that enables your private property rights. So then someone could just take your
What if I don't want that service?
And leaving
what if I
no
don't
property
want that
rights
service?
as opposed to property rights?
But what if I don't want them to protect my property
because
rights?
If you don't want them, then I guess
I'm
go
okay
live
with
in
protecting
Mars,
myself.
so you can have like not an interdependent system
No,
and
let's
just
say
an
I'm on my own
entirely
land.
isolationist system.
No, let's say I'm on my own land. I decide, hey, I want to live off the grid. I don't want to pay any taxes on my land. The state will still force me to pay property taxes, correct? Even if I bought it. So they're still going to force me to pay. They're still forcing me to pay, even though I don't receive the service.
All right. So I'm the bank, and I say that I actually have ownership of that land, and you don't have a right to build a cabin.
That
on
would
that
be theft,
land.
right?
How do you wait? Who's stealing?
The bank would be if I'm the owner
the bank
of
is
the
stealing,
house,
or are you stealing?
If I'm the owner of the house and I paid for it, then the bank would be stealing from me.
The bank is contesting that you own the house.
Well, it depends on whether or not I actually got it through just means. If
I
I
don't
got
know.
it through just means,
hard to say.
in
How
this
do you
situation-
determine who has it versus who doesn't?
Consensual transaction or original appropriation. That's how you
Okay,
determine whether somebody's the owner.
The bank disagree. You did not have a right
It doesn't
to
matter.
build your
It
house
doesn't matter
on that
about
land.
the facts.
That land is actually is owed to Schmitty Wergen.
You could disagree all you want.
Jensen, right? So how do you create that arbitration? I am violating your quote unquote property rights based on what? On air, on the nothing.
Okay, so let's
How
say
do you settle such a dispute?
okay, so let's say there's two guys and they have a dispute, right? And it's this company, right? They start
Specifically
up.
the bank and KingSithis'
Whoa.
property. No, not two guys having a dispute. The bank and KingSithis.
Okay, so
Operate
let's
within
say
the
bank and
hypothetical.
KingSithis, we have a dispute, right?
Yeah.
Let's say hypothetically, right? I go to one firm. We could both go to a firm, right? And we go, hey, can you settle dispute? Look over the dispute, and you could pay that person to look over the dispute. And you don't need force. You don't need to force anyone to pay into the system in order to fund that. You could
On what
fund
basis?
those things voluntarily. Whereas
On
what you're
basis?
supporting, excuse
I
me.
don't trust that guy. I don't want that guy.
Hello.
That guy is not allowed. It's my property, and you can't do anything about it.
It doesn't matter about the facts.
The entire giant militia of people are coming to take the stuff. Now what?
Yeah, so basically what you're making, the argument that you're making is without the state, you can't protect property rights. But you clearly argued earlier that you can protect property rights without the state, correct?
On what basis?
Okay, so again, I'll give the example again because I guess you weren't listening earlier. Let's say I'm a guy, I have
Is it your gun?
Let's say I'm a guy and I have a gun, and a guy robber comes onto my house and he pulls a gun on me, and then I say, "Get off of my lawn," and then he runs off. Would you say that's an example of me protecting my property rights?
Yeah, I've already acknowledged this, but the problem is that it just turns into Mad Max, and the
that's irrelevant.
Situation regarding
what you
taxation
think it's going to turn into is
that
irrelevant.
when you are taxed, there is a justice system that ensures proper arbitration, that ensures contractual obligation, and it ensures that the rightful person owns that property. You directly benefit from that system. Ergo, that is why
we'll
you're
go back
taxed.
to the car
Your
wash
private
example.
Property rights are protected by the basis of taxation because people need to arbitrate it.
Yeah, dude, like, again, it seems like we're looping because fundamentally you agreed.
We are looping.
Because you fundamentally, you told me you agreed that you don't need the state to protect property rights. But on the second hand, you're saying, well, if it is okay for the state to rob people, because if we don't, then you can't protect property rights.
And I should
like,
let you know.
So what is it? Is it either? Wait, can I finish my statement?
Real quick. I have
no, I don't want to hear you real quick. I want to finish my fucking statement. No, don't let me talk. I want to finish my fucking statement. Let me finish my statement. God damn it.
Go ahead.
Stop.
Can you let me let me finish my fucking statement?
Okay, so this can.
You get to finish your statement, and then First Amendment can speak.
Okay,
God damn, man. So what I was going to say is, you're basically, on one hand, you're saying the state, you don't need the state to protect property rights. You're capable. It is theoretically possible for you to protect property rights without the state. And then on the other hand, you're saying, well, actually, it is justified for the state to take your stuff without your consent, because if not, then you won't be able to protect your property rights. So what is it? You need the state to protect property rights, or you don't? Which one is it?
So I'm able to operate within your hypothetical of an individual protecting their property. I'm okay with that. I'm understanding that there are instances where you can protect property rights. But the question is, there's a lot of questions to that. There's more complexity to that. For example, guy shows up on your property. He says he's not leaving. You shoot him. Okay. Was that a justified killing? I don't know. There's probably some law that's saying whether or not that what's appropriate versus not appropriate there. Even in a castle doctrine, if the guy turned around at any point in time and he's escaping, or that it was found that he backed up in any way, you didn't kill him, you murdered him. And in a situation like that, there needs to be some settlement of arbitration that isn't coming from a biased source where you are, necessarily paying them directly to ensure that you are in fact innocent. I think what you end up with is a form of Mad Max or Somalia or whatever. It just ends up being gang warfare. It doesn't actually work out. It's and calling, for example, the United States government a mafia isn't exactly correct, because you're talking about civil litigation and the protection of property rights through civil litigation. Contracts are stipulated and they are very clear in their interpretation on purpose, so that way that there aren't these types of confusions. And in order to establish any of these things, in order to have lawmakers, people that arbitrate on those things, disagreements and then disputes and settlements, this requires money. And the way that this is done is through taxes. But I should also point out to you, and this is just off topic, that I need to. I have a hard cutoff at 11, so I don't know if we want to start Q&A soon. I don't know how many people want to enter into a Q&A.
Yeah. So just to respond to that, fundamentally, on one again, you're making two contradictory claims. On one hand, you're even earlier you agreed with me that you could theoretically hire a group of people who are a part of a firm and then hire those people to protect you consensually without them coming in and making you pay upfront and then throwing you in jail if you don't pay them. You already agreed to that. That is theoretically possible. The only thing that you said was that it wasn't practical. And how I would respond to that is, yeah, I mean, for a rapist, it's impractical to not rape a woman, but that doesn't then give you the right to rape that woman because it may be impractical. I don't care if something may be impractical. It doesn't give you the right to violate property rights. Same thing with the state. Your argument on one hand is, oh, well, it is theoretically possible for you to protect property rights without the state, but if we don't have the state, you can't protect property rights. So again, you're holding two contradictory beliefs. What is it? Either you can't protect property rights without the state at all, or not that it's improbable, not that it's impractical, nor at all, or that it is possible for people to protect themselves without the state, and that the state is necessarily forcing people to pay without their consent. So, I mean, which one is it?
None of this is contradictory, and I've explained it about, I don't know, 3 or 4 times.
All right, we can move on to Q&A.
Once again, try to explain it. Again, you're talking about an individual deciding to protect their property. I guess that's an instance of protecting your property, but not everything ends in the arbitration of a gun. Most of the time, these things are arbitrated through civil matters, and this implies contract law. If you have contract law, there needs to be some sort of civil litigation that implies that contract law and defends it with force. This is usually through a monopoly of force, whether you choose that this is from a government or from, say, a private court system. Well, the problem with your private court system becomes, whose private court system do you go with? I mean, what if a big bank who is having a problem with your cabin settling on that region, they decide to get their own private court system and they say, our private court system is better. We paid more money for it. And then you say, well, I got my own private court system. Which one do you pick? Which one has jurisdiction? How does any of this work? Even under a civil matter, it becomes a complete mess. I can hold both of these ideas simultaneously and it not be contradictory. Anyway, I guess we can go to Q&A.
Yeah, we can go into Q&A.
Alrighty. Do we have anyone that wants to ask a question?
Also, I'm not going to answer any questions that don't have to do with the topic of discussion.
All right,
Looks
Mike.
like we got some people that are raising their hands.
Come up. Unmute Mike.
They're raising their hands.
All right, mute Mike. Who do you have a question for?
Oh, I didn't have a question. I wanted to be unmuted. But if I have a question, is that, well, most of the things related to lawyering and judges and all these legal teams are related in the basis that people have inherited rights and they need to make discussions. Let's say, for example, okay, if I need to make one example of private law working, what is First Amendment? What is your opinion about private law that was made in the Wild West? What is your opinion?
Private law that was made in the Wild West, it was pretty garbage.
In comparison to the federal system that was in that time in the places of New York, in comparison, if you take the
modern
statistics.
governments.
That's
not
a hardly a
modern.
good comparison.
No, not modern.
I mean,
In
I'm
the same,
arguing
in
the
the same
basis of whether or not
timeline.
taxation is theft. It's not theft because taxation enables the ownership of private property. So when you're bringing up the Wild West as an example, well, yeah, private disputes on property or anything, they were often resolved with a gun. That's not very good. And same thing with New York. A lot of that mafia stuff was done at the end of a gun. A lot of dead people, not a good thing. So what we have is that we have a government to quell down violence like that and to handle things in a civil, democratic way. And that requires taxation to do so.
Yeah, but I mean, for me, for example, logic doesn't make much sense that for, I don't know, let's say protecting my private property, I need to be taking my private property first to protect my private property from someone stealing my private property, but I need to first be enforced to pay property because of a connection to society in a social contract where private property being taken is actually protecting private property. It's more of an encircling argument. It doesn't make sense to
It's not
the
a circular argument. A small amount of taxation does not result in your private property protecting, which results in more taxation. There's just the taxation, and then your private property is protected. It's not circular.
If I could respond, I think he's 100% right. Fundamentally, like, he's trying to have his cake and eat it too. He's trying to say, oh, on one hand, it's impossible to protect property rights without the state. But actually, but when we give him examples of times where people have protected property rights without the state, he says, yeah, that is possible, but without the state, we can't protect property rights. It's like, it's two completely contradictory beliefs.
Can I go now?
Yep.
Okay. So my question was for First Amender. So sort of bringing it back to like the car wash analogy from earlier.
Mhm.
I seem to be picking up from First that he was making an argument along the lines of I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but along the lines of you benefit from taxation, right? The system that taxation sort of allows from, and provided that it's just. Is that correct or no?
Well, whether or not that whatever the government is doing is just depends on the exact action. Taxation to protect property rights and contract law is just. But maybe there's an instance of maybe a contract law where it is unjust. For example, it's possible that, hey, under owning this specific house in this particular region is not allowed if you're black. Something like that I would consider to be unjust. Does that answer your question? Is that...
Oh, he's not up here anymore.
I think he left. I don't know what happened.
It's odd.
I got a question.
All right, hold on. Cameron's inviting up. You
To who?
You can ask right after Cameron comes back up. I think.
By the way, ANCAP,
No,
because I've been getting doxxed recently, I need you to be very, very aware that if somebody joins this VC and starts rattling off an address or a name,
I'll kick them out immediately.
Insta ban. I need you to,
Yep.
because I've been getting that lately.
Yeah, for sure.
You
can also get a gun.
Okay, Cameron, go, and you can ask after.
I don't know. Okay, I don't know what happened. I'm just trying to get down. Then, like, is it like, okay? Then maybe I'm not like following. Like, what exactly is it that makes taxation just on your view, like justified?
Because it protects property rights. You are a direct beneficiary of property rights and contract law, and so because you exist in an interdependent system and you cannot divorce yourself from that, you must be taxed.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm not really trying to. The point isn't really to argue about this, so I guess that's fine. So thanks.
All right, Dark, you can go.
All right. I got a question for the king himself, but it might apply to maybe both of you could chime in on it. But there seemed to be a claim made about reality regarding the nature of defending property rights without the state. It seemed like on one side we were saying, you need something like taxation in order to have something like the currently existing conception of property rights. Sithis seemed to reject this. Sithis, where were you informed that it is possible to have an alternative system of organization, not through a centralized polity instituting taxes, and still having things like markets, money, and private property?
I just imagine theoretically a group of guys could come together and they could say, "Hey, I'll protect you for this amount of money," and they could call themselves maybe an insurance firm and insure people's private property against torts. I can imagine something like that theoretically happening. I don't think you necessarily need a state in order to protect property rights. I think there's plenty of ways in which people can come together and figure out ways to settle disputes over scarce resources without necessarily having a state. And it seems like First Amendment agrees with me on that. At least most people agree with me on that. I mean, just because I can't point to a specific point in history, I'm not much of a historian of this ever happening. Maybe my fellow ANCAPs could maybe chime in and help me on that one, but doesn't mean that it isn't possible. That's it for me.
All right, we got someone here that wants to come up.
Hello.
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 So my question is for you, First Amender. Well, it's not really a question. I have sort of a line of reasoning to go down, and I just want to see, because I feel like this is where really the disagreement lives, but it didn't really get touched on. Oh, my cat just knocked over my drink. Whatever. So can you give me your definition of theft again? You have it written
What?
down. Yeah, definition of theft.
The unauthorized taking of another person's personal property with the intent to permanently deprive them of it.
Okay. So if I remember correctly, you used a form that had justified in it. Is that or the like unjustified?
You could
Correct.
say unjust, I suppose, in theft as
Right,
well.
right. So, sorry. So I think the disagreement lives in what justified means. And so here, I just want to make I just want to ask you if it would be okay to make the claim that unjustified would mean that you do not have ownership of something, and then, or okay, hold on. You do not have ownership in the sense of full exclusive rights to it. So, for example, like your income, you wouldn't have full exclusive rights to your income because you live in an interconnected system, and then from there you receive benefits in society, and you can't divorce that. So, therefore, you don't have full, total, mutually exclusive or exclusive rights over it. Correct?
Yeah, you don't exist in a vacuum.
Yes, that's what I'm asking. So essentially, if the state right must exist for this to or must exist for okay, if the state must
not
exist to
necessarily the state, but a monopoly of force
yeah.
is required.
Yeah, so monopoly
enforce.
force just to enforce the property rights, correct?
Yes, and contract
So-
law and all the laws involved to ensure that we have a just and equitable society. Yes.
Yeah. So essentially, where I think the disagreement lives here, and I think you're going to agree, and then Sithis is going to agree, and then we're going to come to sort of a realization that this whole thing was we stayed off the we were on the wrong flow. But I just don't think what Sithis here is advocating for is this subjective theory of ownership. I think he has a transcendentally objective theory of ownership, and that is where the disagreement lies. So, in you saying things like property rights, can't exist or they can't be enforced, and therefore cannot exist without some form of taxation. You're essentially saying that property rights, in some sense, are subjective. They are descriptively exist through societal cooperation, whereas I think Sithis believes that property rights come from what it means to own something. So they are semantically implied. So I think the question I really had was, would you both agree with that sentiment, and would you think that that's where the disagreement
I,
today
I
lies?
100% agree with that. Fundamentally, where I'm coming from is that you are the owner of your property regardless of whether somebody has the ability to take it or force it from you, or like for instance, if I have a phone in my hand and somebody snatches it and takes it from me, even though they have more force and runs away from me, I would say I would still be the owner of that phone.
Right, and then amender, you would say that even though that person maybe in some sense,
for example, I enjoy John Locke's concept of inalienable rights. It seems to be that you're touching on the idea of inalienable rights, or Lockean theorem of that. The problem exists is that while philosophically it seems to work, empirically, from a realistic standpoint, it's just flowery. It just makes us feel good that it's like, hey, maybe it's implied, but in reality, there needs to be something that enforces that.
okay, and then that's really all I had. Just where the disagreement lives, because I don't think that really got touched on. We didn't really get into Lockean theory. We didn't get into Hobbes' justification for the non-aggression principle. So I just think that I think that's where this went wrong. That's all I had.
I agree.
All right, am I live?
Yep.
Excellent. So my question is for Amender. Just as a quick aside here, it does seem like the both of you are failing to adequately address why the things that you are referring to. So, like in Amender's case, the society that is the necessary condition, or things like rights, and Thithis is NAP. Like, these things are not being argued for. They're being stated as if they're tacitly assumed, and then kind of going from there. But my question is in either case, fundamentally, what you guys are both arguing for is the continuation of a system that essentially extrapolates people's value within the market and estranges them from their labor. So I'm wondering how the two of you guys might come together and formulate a proposition for abolishing the value form and the conditions that essentially perpetuate this horrifying system of estranged labor and exploitation.
I disagree with the premise. I'm assuming that you are likely a Marxist-Leninist or a desire to abolish property. I mean, if you want some agreements where we do agree, is probably where I agree that workers are exploited, and I think that having unions or worker co-ops is perfectly acceptable, and I'm not against worker co-ops or unions. But I'm okay with the concept of the private ownership of the means of production, provided that there is equitability in that and that it is sustainable.
Well, then I'm going to have to respond to that just one little bit and say, that argument that you were giving Sithis about, the conditions that are required for having rights and stuff. Basically, what you just said is I'm for the very conditions for all of the exploitation that exists. I'm for that. I'm for those necessary conditions.
I mean, you're predicating that it is that. I just reject that premise. I think that you can remove exploitation. I'm okay with private property rights, but I think that there are limits to it. So I'm just
Wait,
not
were
as
you finished with
extreme
that?
as you are. Yeah. I have
I
to use
guess
the
to
bathroom.
respond,
But go ahead.
I don't really believe in the labor theory of value. I'm an Austrian. I believe in Austrian economics. So yeah, if you want like a much deeper like a much deeper analysis, or my analysis that is much deeper, you should probably check out my YouTube video, why the labor theory of value is wrong, or forgot what it's called, debunking the labor theory of value.
Well,
And
I'm
then
less about the labor theory of value and more about estrangement of labor, right? So, what the current system facilitates is a relationship between the laborer and the employer and or capitalist class, wherein man is not engaged in labor for his own satisfaction or the satisfaction of the species, but to procure for the capitalist or the managerial class more and more wealth. And what it seems to me to be is the case is the two of you seem to be more focused in on private property, not really realizing that the private property that you guys are defending, like that is the necessary, and I think many Marxists, although I wouldn't, would argue that it's the necessary and sufficient condition for all of the things that he's talking about in terms of exploitation that he agrees with, and stuff that I don't even think that you or I, as workers in the workforce, could say, well, yeah, we totally take part in this, and that's totally fun. But it does seem like both of you are arguing for the facilitation of those things.
personally, I don't have a problem with private business. So, and I don't believe in the labor theory of value.
Me and KingSithis can agree on something.
Yeah, there you go. We can high five on that one. I don't have a problem with private business. So private prop. I can't imagine a world without property. I mean, you'd have to at least believe in self ownership. You know what I'm saying? Like even if you're a hardcore anti-private property person, you would have to at least believe in self ownership, because to my understanding of private property is the right to exclude, or the exclusive right to control a scarce resource. You know what I mean? And if you don't have that right at all for anything, that would mean that you wouldn't have the right to use your own body. You know what I mean? Like, what gives you the right to have the exclusive right to use your own body? Well, because you're the owner, right? Well, that would make you the private property owner, right? So I think not living, like, I can't imagine not having property. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Hey, hello.
Hi.
Everybody. So my question is just for First Amender here. I want to ask him, you say that taxation is not theft, right?
That's correct.
So I think that's the part that wasn't really touched on the debate, right? The whole entire contention was, what was the difference between a mafia and the state, right? And I don't think that has sufficiently been answered exactly, right? And the debate instead was over ANCAP's implications, which was not what I was interested in. I was like interested more so like what legitimizes
It's because of
this.
civil arbitration. It doesn't imply force. It just implies ensurement that a contract is followed through. The only way where force is involved is where there's a violent action of some kind, and mafias will gladly introduce force. They will escalate force, whereas we have a democratic institution that ensures laws. It is not the same as a mafia.
I mean, like, wouldn't you say then that like if a mafia were to extort you, right, and you don't pay their protection fees, they would like throw you in their basement or something, right? Like I still can't see the difference between this.
I don't even think
mafia here
even you
and
don't pay your taxes
state
that
throwing
it results
you in
in
a
that.
cell.
Yeah, I
Well,
don't even think even if
eventually
you
it'll happen.
don't pay your taxes, that you'll go to jail.
Okay. Well,
I
It
mean,
would
are
have
we
to be
implying
really,
that tax
really good
evasion is
reason.
not a crime?
It would have to be really, yeah, of course it's a crime, but the question is whether or not you go to jail.
Well, what do you think happens when you commit a crime, dude?
What?
Like, sorry, we were talking over each other. I think what Sithis was trying to ask was like, well, eventually, they're gonna come after you if you don't pay it, right?
I mean, maybe, but I'll be honest, like the IRS has not been good at that at all.
Okay. Well, I have no further questions because if I continue, I feel like it would just be the entire debate over again, right? And so.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Hello.
Hello.
So my question is for first amender. Hold on. Anyways, it's kind of a lengthy one, so might want to put on your listening ears. So my question is, at what point do you draw the line on what this interdependent society can or cannot do, if by the will of the majority or the Constitution,
Hold on, let
supposing
me
that
write down
is
what you're saying so I can get it right. Can you repeat it?
okay.
Go ahead.
At what point do you draw the line on what this interdependent society can or cannot do, if by the will of the majority or Constitution, and let's suppose it is popularly supported, we can have 10% of the population be slaves to a small group to do all the hard labor and create quality goods at a cheap price and build infrastructure? Can the slave owner then incentivize their slaves to work a little harder by paying them a small amount and then taxing, say, 20% of their income? Is this justified? And if not, how will you stop or determine it's not justified?
It is not justified. I would probably use moral philosophy initially to justify why it is unjustified, and then advocate for laws to prevent that from happening because I don't believe people can be property.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Well, do you mean property in general? Do you not believe it's self-ownership, or do you mean property of other people?
I don't believe that people can be property, literally.
Like of other
themselves
people?
are not property.
Or so you're saying you don't believe in
Like
self-ownership?
people cannot be treated as a lamp. People are their
Okay,
own
got you.
individual, have their own individual autonomy. They're
So you
not
do believe in
property.
self-ownership, right? I would assume.
Yes.
Okay, got you. I don't want people to say, oh, he doesn't believe in self. I was just saying, making that, like, you're saying that you believe in self-ownership. What you're saying is you don't think other people should treat you as if they own you, basically. Is that it?
Yeah, I don't know, Doggo. Do you think the tale of the slave is useful or no?
Probably not very right now.
Yeah.
I thought that was what he was gonna run.
I think Dark has one more question.
Yeah, looks like it.
Dark.
All right. So, just to sum it up, what was the actual topic of the debate and what was being debated?
Is taxation theft?
Gotcha.
I thought it was a pretty
is that it?
interesting debate. I think you guys
Thank you, Simple Name D, for the subscription. I appreciate that very much.
some very interesting points on both sides. Looks like Lego has a question, actually. So
I refuse to answer anything from him.
That's okay. Yeah, thank you guys for coming on. It was a good time. I think
you were able to get some substance out. Both of you were able to present some good points. Yeah.
First Amendment, I know that we got a little heated, but I do respect the fact that you actually came and debated. And yeah.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, Sithis, me and you next.
No. Well, maybe. It depends on what the topic is.
You get to pick. You get to pick. I always let the opponent pick. It's only fair that way.
Well,
But we got someone.
I don't really have a specific topic. I don't know. I'll have to think about it.
USD saying, cool debate. Love non-trans debates around here. What? You don't like trans debates? I love trans debates. This is some of my favorite.
I feel like that's such an annoying debate to talk about. Like, people have the right to their body. That's it. Let them be.
Base.
Sithis, you want to debate me on LTV?
The labor theory of value?
Yeah.
Sure, I guess. Maybe. When?
Right now, man.
Right now? No, not right now, because I just did.
No, we gotta let him
I mean, we could
prepare.
talk about it, but like, not like a full debate. Like,
I think Paper Bag Man has a question.
I don't actually. I don't.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, looks like the event's over. So yeah.
Wait, Paper Bag Man, I have a question for you. Hold on.
You got me for 19
What's
more
up?
minutes.
What's up, man?
he's not even a debater.
Okay. Hold on.
No,
I know.
man,
I have a
what's your
question for him. Okay.
Well, First Amendment,
So-
what
so-
would it take you to be a communist, bro?
What I would have to see is like, I need to see like empirical evidence that it actually works. I know for a fact that communism has never been tried. Attempts have been made, but it is officially like the stateless, moneyless, classless society has never actually been established. One thing that I'm genuinely curious about, and I think a lot of capitalists don't like to acknowledge, is the fact that socialism has been stopped at the root by the United States for like a really long time. There's only a very tiny handful of countries where there was no intervention. I think, for example, Yugoslavia was largely left alone by the United States, but that was mostly because it was after the USSR, and Yugoslavia was benefiting directly from subsidies from the USSR. So it logically would infer that Yugoslavia would also negatively be impacted because of the United States intervention. And my question becomes, like, just from an economics pure curiosity standpoint, if socialism were left to its own devices, would it actually result into better outcomes? And I think that's a genuine question that every economist should ask themselves.
Yugoslavia was not part of the Eastern Bloc. So
Was it not?
No, it was
Weren't
not
they
part of the
getting
Eastern Bloc.
subsidized by the USSR?
No, so there was in 1948 there was the
Being
Tito-Stalin pact that
subsidized
broke,
by
and
USSR. Let me see here. Oh, that's new. I did not know that.
yeah. But there's lots of empirical evidence. If empirics would actually persuade you, we can have that conversation, First Amender. We can do a
I
debate.
mean, trust me, I'm not a socialist. I'm a capitalist, because I know capitalism, it functions, it works. Does it have problems?
What does work
hell
mean? What does work mean? What does that mean?
It enables there to be higher quality of living standards as opposed to not establishing that.
Okay, how could we tell? What's the counterfactual?
Well, if we looked at the Human Development Index and observed socialist countries just doing better off than capitalist nations, then I would be in your favor. But it turns out it's actually like a mixed model system that seems to work best. It's usually like, if you look at Nordic model countries, we can observe that there is a benefit there.
Okay. I mean, when we talk about, because then the question is about communism versus capitalism. So the counterfactual, right, would have to be like maybe a synthetic control or something, right? But we could like build some or look at some studies the interesting factor is when people say, hey, this works versus doesn't work. I always think that's interesting because it's really about what you prefer, right? What are the outcomes that you're interested in? When you say the Human
Yeah.
Development Index, what is it actually measuring? How could we compare this? What are the
It's a very specific measurement. It
yeah.
measures 3 key dimensions: life expectancy,
Mhm.
knowledge in schooling years, as well a standard of living, which is a GNI per capita. So it
Right. But
measures
like,
all
so in
3 of those
order,
things and puts it into an arbitrary number that we can compare with other countries.
but
I
we
think
would
it's
have
a
to control for a number of factors that are causal mechanisms, right? Because if, for example, it's the case that we compare countries that are, have a very free market economy as opposed to a state-directed economy, and both are experiencing, for example, embargoes by the United States, right?
Yeah.
Or have, then could we compare? Okay, well, this one that has a state-directed economy is doing worse than this other one that has,
maybe
some more free market economy.
if
I mean,
all else equal, then yeah, in theory, yeah.
yeah, I mean, it seems interesting though, right? Because like all of the measurements that one might concern themselves with, right? We can find empirics of places like Cuba having higher literacy rates or, more doctors per capita. In fact, having doctors that are so significant that other countries import them, right? In order to help out with medical services. Or, we could look at like Kerala in the southern Indian state. The chief minister is a member of the Communist Party of India, and they have the highest living standards, right, out of all of
All
these
right,
other
wait,
states,
guys.
comparably.
I hate to be that guy, right? But
My fault,
is
Flynn.
is
My
this
fault, Flynn.
a is this a debate or is this just a question? Like, you know what I mean? Like not
I
trying to
think
be
we
that
moved
guy.
past that.
So are we
I
done
was
with
just trying to.
questions here, or
Yeah, it seems like there's no more questions.
okay?
I
Because
just kind of was curious on First Amender, and I think Dark is curious too why First Amender doesn't accept communism.
okay, so no more questions for me in the audience. I'm guessing.
I don't think so. Sithis.
Okay,
I think
guys.
most people like kind of disagree with you here, so it's
Yeah.
kind of
Well,
yeah.
because I'm right.
This is
But
the ANCAP
anyways,
server.
so
Oh.
I am gonna say one last thing, if that's all right.
All right.
I recently came out with a YouTube video called "Why We Should Legalize All Drugs," and I put a lot of work into it. And I think that communist, socialist, ANCAP, or whomever you are, I think you would definitely and like it. So
Well,
yeah,
about your YouTube, actually, I would kind of like you to explain like why you still have that service dog video uploaded, bro.
the debate, because it's funny. Come on,
Why is that funny? Like
you don't
just
think it
went
was
on a
funny?
random. No,
Come
I
on, it
felt like
was
it was kind
funny.
of
I
bad
thought it
taste.
was funny.
You just went on a random woman's TikTok and like started trying to like debate.
She
about her
invited
on
me. What was I
service
supposed
dog.
to say? No.
She invited
No,
you to
it's
this.
fine.
Yeah, she saw my TikTok because I made a TikTok where I was like, I don't see why we should allow people to force people to let their service dog into a building. And then her name was literally like service dog advocator or whatever, some shit like that. And she messaged me saying, hey, I want to talk to you about it. And then I was like, okay. So then I went in the debate.
Do you think businesses should have the right to discriminate against people who like need walkers
Yes.
in order to walk?
Well, if they want
Okay.
to. Yeah, if they want to. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So like, yeah, you're just in favor with discriminating against people with disabilities, which like I don't think that
discrimination
should be a thing,
in general. I'm okay with discrimination in general if it what
No, I know.
like, like it doesn't matter if they're disabled, black,
Not
fucking
a
a
good
midget.
look.
I don't care. Like discrimination is if
No,
you
I get
own
it,
a
I get it.
building, if you own a building, like that's your building and you have the right to
Well,
discriminate.
like,
Period.
we could imagine a world, right, where if you smoke weed, your employer could just fire you just for smoking weed. It's like you could be pro drug,
That's
but not
discrimination,
in a
right?
substantial way.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
discrimination. Like, but fundamentally, like, that's a private property dispute. Like, if I don't want a guy who smokes weed on my business, then you don't have to let him. But if I'm on my own property, I should be allowed to smoke as much weed as I want.
I do want to point out though, right, is like I feel like the difficulty we typically have when I have conversations with you, KingSithis, is I try to appeal to I usually try to appeal to people and what they care about. And then I fundamentally understand that when I'm speaking to you, you wouldn't actually care about if the world were a worse place, right? You wouldn't care about if, for example, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 never occurred and people were actively discriminated
No.
against their race, right?
Because
Like
what's
you
the
wouldn't care about that.
counterfactual? You can't. I could just say it would have been better off had they not put it in
So the
place.
counterfactual is prior to 1964, people
Yeah,
were
but wait,
discriminated.
that's just
against their race.
that's propter hoc, post hoc, propter hoc, whatever they call that shit. That's not. I could say
That's not post hoc propter.
whatever
Okay,
they call that.
that is
shit.
not post hoc ergo propter hoc. You're
Yeah, whatever.
confused. All right, but here you're confused about it. But if we break it down, right? If we had
dude,
it's okay. It's okay.
I don't care.
It's all good.
I don't care.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
Okay.
I'm just stating that's the
I have a
difficulty that we typically have.
Oh yeah, we have a
Okay,
question for KingSithis. Wait, lock in, guys.
I'll take one more from this lady here. What's up?
Or it was just more about specifics, and maybe it was like addressed and I just went right over my head. But like the difference with the whole car wash thing and the mafia thing is that I didn't elect, I have no power to elect or remove the mafia or the car wash person. Like that's the difference, is that this is something we all as a society agreed to. And like at the end of the day, it ultimately comes down to everyone around you is saying, listen, this is what we all agreed to. Unless you can convince more of us to change this system, like if you can convince 51% of us to change this system, then yeah, you're right, we won't tax you anymore. But like that's the difference, is the voting.
So if I'm not mistaken, and tell me if I'm wrong, you're basically saying because we could vote out the people who represent us, it's not the same as a mafia, basically, or they're not like stealing from us, basically.
Sure. Yes.
Well, the issue with it is that it does, just because 51% of the population votes to take something without another person's consent doesn't then, magically not make it theft anymore. So for instance, if 51% of the population thought it was okay to stab somebody, obviously, like, you wouldn't hold that same standard, correct?
I mean, we live in a society. Are you just mad that you can't go live off grid? Like that if you do if you buy something from a store that you're on the grid, is that what you're mad about?
No, I'm not mad, actually. I'm pretty happy right now. What I was going to say is, fundamentally, the argument that I'm making is just because people vote for something does not make it just, right? If I don't, just because people vote to take portion of my money and then give it to the state to quote unquote protect me, that doesn't then make it like, oh, okay, well, you could just vote. Well, it's just like, okay, but I mean, that doesn't change whether or not they're taking shit from me without my permission.
I guess I'm just this in terms of like ultimately what gives the state the power to do this. It's the people. That's who gives it the power. What makes that just is it's the consent of the majority.
But you wouldn't hold
and we
that
have a
standard.
social contract.
I would hope you wouldn't hold that standard in other situations, though. So let's say 51% of the population says it's okay to stab people who wear orange, right? Would that then make it okay?
I think that if that was enacted for a year, then quickly the population opinion would change accordingly.
Well,
it would no longer support that.
Let's say it didn't. Like everybody's just adamant, like orange colored wearing people must be stabbed. Like,
and then I would go and look for another country to live in where it doesn't work that way.
But that's not what I asked you, miss. What I asked you is, would that make it okay?
It's kind of a normative claim, right? Like, would that be okay? Would that be good? I guess you're just saying you'd have a preference not to live there, but that doesn't really mean it's justified.
Yeah, well, like, would that be justified? Like, from your perspective, like, would those people, should they be allowed to do that? Or would you say, no, they shouldn't be allowed to do that?
I would say if there's that 51% of the population has been brought to this point of view for some reason. I don't know what that reason is. It sounds insane to me, but like for some reason, a majority of the population wants this. But the reason I brought this up is because you were asking what the difference is, and that's what the difference is.
Yeah, I
Is
know the difference, but
representation.
I'm saying it doesn't make a difference. That's my point.
But so, like, just purely descriptively, like Nazi Germany was, obviously majority anti-Semite, as very common in Central Europe, historically and at that time. And maybe they didn't know about the Holocaust, but they definitely wanted discrimination against Jews broadly. So, I mean, would that be a just claim just because the majority of people felt that was justified?
No, it would
Yeah.
not. I'm just saying you were comparing it to the mafia and to some guy taking your car and that sort of force. And the difference
Kind of worse
is
than the mafia, isn't it?
It kind of is because you can't. The mafia is not a monopoly of violence. It's a criminal gang. You can run to other criminal gangs for protection from.
Yeah,
well,
the
no,
mafia
with the
didn't kill 6
mafia,
million, right?
with the mafia, it doesn't matter how many people you can get to agree with you. It doesn't matter how many votes you can get on your side. They will still be in
same.
charge because they're the mafia. And that's not the case here. In the case here, we can, if you convince enough people, you can vote the people you don't like out and you can vote the people you do like
Yeah,
in.
if you
Well,
get
if
enough
I may.
people.
So
Yeah,
the reason
That's
why I
the-
brought up the mafia example is because I was using Mender here was basically making the argument that without the state, another larger force will come in and violate your rights. So you
I
might
have
as
to
well
get
pay to
going,
that
y'all.
group.
yeah,
I've only
thanks.
got I got less than 5 minutes, by the way.
Well, I mean, sorry, were you gonna say something? What was that?
No, it's okay. I have to go.
Oh,
I'm
okay,
just letting
okay.
you know.
What I
Oh,
was going to
bye-bye.
say is that like the reason why I said that was because he was saying basically without the state you can't protect yourself because another group will come in and attack you and violate your rights. Whereas the mafia is basically so you should be forced to pay into that system. Whereas the mafia is kind of similar in the same way because they are a group of people that go up to private property owners. They say, hey, you need our protection. If you don't protect us, then another group is going to come in and take your stuff. So pay us and we'll protect you. And if you don't pay us, we're going to break your legs. Well, it's basically the same situation. It's just different names. That's why I used the mafia example.
Okay, it still doesn't remove the part that the mafia doesn't have elections and that the American government does.
And then my further point was that elections don't change whether or not what they're doing is just or not. Doesn't
So I
change
actually
whether
have
or
to-
not they're just.
I actually have to head out, but I appreciate y'all and having
Thank
this
you,
conversation.
First
It was
Amendment, for
fabulous.
coming.
Absolutely, was fun. If you guys are not subscribed, consider subscribing. I do debates like this all the time, so if you kind of want to hear from a more progressive lens or get out of any echo chamber, if you are in one, and you want to have discussions, we can do so. Just subscribe. I'll give you guys my link. And there you go. You guys have a great rest of your night. Thank you.
Have a good one. Also,
Peace.
guys, I do want to say that I'm only 15 subscribers away from 1,000 subscribers. So if you and cappers in the down there can help me out, that would be great.
Yeah, let's get KingSithis to 1,000 subscribers right now.
Oh yeah,
We got the numbers in chat, guys.
we're literally 15 guys in there. So, if you want, I could put the link in the bio, shouldn't I?
It's okay. I'm gonna subscribe to you on 3 accounts.
Oh, there you go. Somebody did it already.
Won't do it.
Okay. Thank you guys so much. And you guys should watch my latest why we should legalize all drugs. I put a lot of work in that and it didn't really get that much views and I feel bad about it. So
No need to send it 4 times, right?
All right. How many subs you at, bro? Let's get the number up.
yeah,
Come on,
like
Cap.
subscribe now.
Let's get them up to 1K, guys.
Hell yeah. If you
Yeah,
guys
I got
do that
you
for
for
me,
away.
that would be awesome.
we
Maybe
can,
I'll be cool enough to hang out with people like Liquid Zulu and and Hoppa and
We
shit.
gotta do more debates on here. Come on, Sithis. That's good.
Whenever, listen, if Dark asked me to do a debate, if he was serious about that, then
You
I will
really-
debate him. If you
You
have
really
another
want to debate
opponent,
LTV with Dark?
I mean,
No,
if
I'm telling
he's-
you, like I could
if he's
find
okay with
other
that.
YouTubers that
if
would
you could
debate
find
this
people
with
for me to debate, I will do it. No problem.
Okay.
Like you just did right now, what you just did, I like what you just did. I like that you did that.
Okay.
So
I know you weren't
yeah.
happy with the moderation. I mean, I felt like
We're okay,
we,
brother.
we tried.
Yeah,
We
it's
tried our
okay.
best, but
No,
you
I
guys
just felt
did.
like there was some times where he was just like talking over me, and you guys weren't there. And I said, guys, and you weren't even there. Like
You guys weren't there. So
Yeah.
sad.
We
Yeah,
weren't
Sithis, I
there.
think
Yo,
at some
King
point, Sithis,
Okay.
at some point you decided he's interrupting me, I'm gonna interrupt him, and it was very clear. Okay, I
Yeah,
had him
like-
muted sometimes, and I would see him talking, and then you would chime in, and it was like, oh man.
Yeah.
Like, you're making
I
their
was
job so
interrupting him,
hard.
but he was interrupting me so hard, and nobody. I was like, ANCAP, doggo, and nobody answers me. I was like, fuck it. I'm just if he's
Yeah,
gonna interrupt me, I'm gonna interrupt him. So I'm just gonna fucking.
So I think one of the issues you had though is that once Doggo did chime in, Doggo, I mean, you got to treat the debate moderator like he's a dog. You know what I mean? Like it's Doggo, you got to treat him like a dog. You got to give him positive affirmation. But instead, you went to the meta debate right after Doggo finished to try to get you back on course. It's like
No, because he
gotta
wasn't
chill
letting
out
me. He wasn't letting me make my fucking hypothetical. Oh my god, I was okay. Yeah, I was doing that. I'll admit it. But the reason why I did it was because I was frustrated because he wasn't like letting me give the freaking hypothetical. I felt like it's like just let me finish the freaking hypothetical. Anyways, I was like, bro, are you like scared of my hypothetical or something? Like, bro, come on.
No, but as I was saying, Sithis, that's settled. But I mean, as I was saying, like when you're in that flow and you're talking about this, and he brings up. Oh man, I was just gonna say, like, you have to bring up ownership. That's the distinction there that you couldn't touch on, like, because his ownership theory was based on social contract, and if you aren't gonna refute the social contract, if you're just gonna go round and round circles, where does the logic stop? Nobody knows. You know what I mean? Like,
I also think you should have just honestly, just ignored as much as possible when he was saying like, well, you can't defend your property without the state.
I was trying,
like,
but
even
it was
if
hard.
Because
no, but
dude, you should have just said like, okay, even if without the state we would all die instantly and just explode and everything would be hell, like that wouldn't make it not theft.
yeah,
Maybe
because
I should have said that.
Your theory of ownership is fundamentally objective. It is descriptively objective.
Yeah.
Semantically, so that you can't just like let him say that and then say because we live in a, what did he say? It was like an interconnected, whatever.
I guess my point was like, I guess I was trying to say like, even if it was true that a bigger guy is able to come over and take over your stuff, it's like, fundamentally, it just because there is a fact, just because the fact. I mean, like, okay, who was I was trying to say? Like,
the facts don't matter, but you have to articulate that.
Like, what I was trying to say is, no, you're not understanding what I'm saying. Like, what I was trying to say is, I said it wrong. What I was trying to say was, fundamentally, even if that person, we both agree that a person can have the might to take over and take my shit, right? But that doesn't change the fact that I also have the ability to protect myself, right? So, because there is a fact that I could protect myself without the state, right? Which he agreed to, he actually agreed to multiple times. Because I felt like here's fundamentally why I maybe I didn't handle it 100% best, but here's why I think I won. Because he basically was saying, oh, the only way that we could protect property rights is with the state. And if we don't have the state, then you can't protect property rights. But then I was like, okay, well, then I gave him multiple examples, like the guy with the gun and private property owners and insurance agencies, of how it could be protected without and his only argument was, oh, it was impractical. But he agreed that it could be done without the state. So he's making an argument on one hand that you can't.
Can I interject?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So the fundamental distinction you're missing is that yes, he completely agreed to everything you said. He conceded that in this ANCAP society, like even though he's pushing back on you, like what if I had more people? The reason Paper Bag Man is saying you ignore that is because it doesn't matter. He conceded that you can do it, but he's just saying that he doesn't give a shit because ownership is derived from the state. He is literally saying that ownership is derived from social contract. There is nothing you can do. If you do not contest that point, you lose on the flow because he has stated that very clearly, and you're not stating that ownership is independent of the state. You are just saying that you can enforce private property rights. He doesn't care.
Yeah, but I asked him if he believed that you should be allowed to keep the fruits of your labor. The only difference was that he believed that the state was not that the state was taking your money, but the state was in just right to take your money. And I was making the argument.
Yeah, he said it was a just right to take your money because there isn't any property rights. He said you need the state to have property rights, not in enforcement, but literally because ownership does not exist without the state, is what he's saying.
Oh.
So he's saying if you don't have the state, you don't own your labor because
Well,
there's no ownership at all.
See, to me, it didn't seem like he was saying that. To me, it seemed like he was saying,
Yeah, but this
you
is
can't
one of
protect
those
the
things
state.
where you have to.
Because it seemed to me
This
like
is one of
he
those
was
things.
saying.
Sorry.
No, I was just
I'm
one
sorry.
last sentence. It seemed to me that he was saying that like you without the state you can't reasonably take care of your protect your property, so you need the state to protect property rights. So to me, I was just like, wait a minute, well, if you're already agreed with me that you can protect your state with property rights without the state, but then you're saying the only way you can protect property rights is with the state, to me that's like a complete contradiction. And then he's like, oh, but you could hold those two beliefs simultaneously at the same time. And I was like, no, how? That doesn't make any sense.
Right, so I only got like the first hour and 15 of the debate, but if I had to go through and say who won, the way I would do this is I would say, okay, the fundamental distinction between the two positions, the disagreement was ownership from the very start. And only one side, which was him, actually, fully articulated their entire ownership theory and why it conflicts. But at the same time, he also, I feel like he stalled in a way, and his statements weren't timed well. So
Well, I mean, I did
you
say,
did
I
kind
did
of get
mention,
him. You got him on the.
I
You
mean,
got him
I
on the
did.
circular. The
I was
circular
just gonna say,
hypotheticals
I
that
did
you got him
mention
on.
the what you call it,
The
self
NAP,
ownership
but
and the non-aggression
you didn't make the
principle.
distinction.
Well, what distinction should I have made?
The distinction that his ownership theory comes from subjective theory, but subjective theory is impossible. So essentially, what you had to do was, Liquid Zulu's video where he lines out like why the NAP is like just or whatever, and then he goes through every other property ethic and then says, well, specifically, you should have chosen might makes right. That's what you should have gone for, and then you should have said, like through might
Well,
makes
he would
right.
believe in mixed law.
Yeah,
And
mixed law, but
yeah.
Fundamentally, the distinction is that he believes that without any enforcement, there's no.
Well, here was his
ownership,
arguments.
there's no
Here was his
property.
arguments because I was there. So this was his arguments essentially. In the beginning, I asked him, "What gives the state the right to take my property?" Because we both agreed that I own the fruits of my labor. Because I asked him that, and he said yes. So then he said, because you benefit from the services that the state gives you, you ought, that you owe them money, essentially. So then I bring the car wash example. So he said, they're different. And I asked him what makes them different. And he said, the difference is that without the state, you can't protect your property without the state. So you can't even have you can't even have property without the state because any other bigger person could just come in and take your stuff. And that's like the argument that he kept coming in with. So I asked him, then my follow-up was to that was, well, if you believe that the only way that you could protect your property is to the state, well, let's say I'm on my own property and I have a gun and I scare some guy off with a gun. Wouldn't that be an example of me protecting my property without a state? And he said, yes. And I was like, okay, so then it is possible to protect your property without a state. And he said, yes. I was like, okay, then you don't need a state to protect property. No.
Okay, so on the gun example, once you said that you can scare a guy off with a gun and protect your property that way, again, it comes back to ownership. What is private property?
Oh, ownership. Oh, the right to exclude a person from a scarce resource.
Right. He's saying you can't exclude a person from a scarce resource. You don't have a right to without jurisdiction.
Well, I mean, he's using the word. Well, what do you mean by that?
He means that without jurisdiction, or without like a central authority to govern what ownership
where's
is.
that where it gave them that jurisdiction, and he said because I benefit from the service. Then I gave him the car wash example, and then he said,
"Yes, this is where it kind of goes round and round."
Yeah. So then
Doggo,
he says,
I think he did state. I again, like I don't remember it 1-to-1 and write everything down, but I think Doggo remembers. Did he like actually like articulate that position that ownership comes from the state, and then like the
no, he
reason
didn't say
happens
that.
is
I don't
because
think he
Well,
said that.
he said that to be able to properly protect property rights, you need a state.
Exactly. His
But
argument
yeah, I
wasn't
know he said that a lot, but
that wasn't
he did
his
agree.
argument that essentially if you don't have property, you don't have a state. Essentially. But
You
he
never
only
defined
meant he only
property in the
agreed to
debate.
what you said after you asked him, and that was all the way at the end of the debate. At the end of the debate, he said what you said, but during the whole debate, he said what I said.
Cithis, what you had to do was at the beginning of the debate, you just define what property was, because he did not have a concession of property. It made sense.
Yeah, I mean, more specifically, you got to define what ownership is, and then go from there.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the. I mean, I don't think I did that bad. I mean, shit.
When
You
you
guys
got,
making me
Yeah, I don't
feel
think you did
bad.
that bad
restating
either.
The same analogy in the car wash when he asked for.
So,
like,
like, you guys think I did
institutional
okay? Like, I know you guys are criticizing me because you guys want me to do better next time, but do you think I did okay or?
I think you needed
Yeah,
to
I mean, you
switch your
didn't like
analogies. And
you didn't like
needed to,
blunder 16 times. But
you kept running car wash like 3 times. You could have just said slavery, right? Because if his whole point is that if something's like is like societally agreed upon and at scale and hard to get away from realistically, then it's somehow justified. And like the car wash didn't apply, but you could just pivot it to slavery.
Well, the reason I try to stay away from like slavery and rape analogies is because I got a bunch of criticism from people basically saying that I probably should like use normal examples because.
Yeah, but in this case, it would have been appropriate.
Zulu always
He's
uses
asking
rape
for an
analogies, bro.
Yeah, and I don't want to
institutional
be the rape analogy
society
guy
welcome.
every fucking minute.
But you could do the slavery thing there. Like clearly, he's like that would be an
Maybe
appropriate
that would
time
have
to
been a
use
better
it.
argument to make. Yeah, you're probably right.
But that's the thing. Like, instead of just restating the same thing, if it's just something nitpicky, like, hey, this doesn't have the right scale, just think of something at a bigger scale. Because I mean, the car wash thing, I think is fine. I don't know. I probably wouldn't say that, but
Because
I think it
when
worked,
I was in the
right?
debate with him, he didn't mention that. Oh, property rights come from the state. From my example,
He did.
From what he did.
Yeah, he
As
said
far
without
as
the
I could
state,
tell,
there can't be
I thought he was
property
saying
rights.
that.
yeah, okay. If he said that, then what I just said is completely accurate.
Well, as
He
far as I
did,
could
yeah.
tell, he was basically saying that the only way you could protect property is through a state.
Yeah, without the state, there's no property. That was his claim.
That's not what I heard. He was basically, from what I heard, it was basically him saying that it's impractical to have people protect themselves on their own. So therefore, you
Do
need a
you
state.
flow during debates with this?
No,
You should.
maybe I should.
Does anyone know the
Well-
app that Zulu uses with that flow thing?
No, I've been looking for it.
Maybe I should do
ask-
that.
It's Emacs. It's called Emacs. EMACS.
I'm saving
Emacs.
EMACES?
Yes, GNU Emacs is what it's called.
GNU.
I legit
He does it.
just flow in
Everything
my-
is controlled with his keyboard.
I just flow in my note thing on my
Say that again?
Windows.
Yeah, I put it in the notes too. I think it's just way easier. I
Yeah,
don't want to
dude,
learn a
I
bunch
have
of
a Google
keybinds to
Doc,
go through like drop down menus. That's retarded.
I do it on my Obsidian. So.
Kid
You can also
Destiny.
just do it on a notepad. Fun
I
fact.
tell you, like Sithis, if you
That is
started
true.
flowing, you're gonna do infinitely better.
Oh well, if he
Yeah,
would have
because-
said,
okay.
I could have. Here's a good rebuttal I could have made to that argument, right? If I understood it correctly, which is he would have said that property only comes from the state. Well, then I could have just been like, okay, let's say there's 2 people on an island and one person wants to rape the other person. Does the person not have the right to own their body because there's no state around? Or like, let's
Yeah, but
say
then he's just gonna scale it.
yeah, and then you could just scale
So,
it to like a bunch of government.
Sithis. I know you're trying to talk about the debate again, but I don't think he's ingraining this in your brain enough. Literally, nobody has ever won a debate without tracking the flow when the other person is. Literally, nobody has ever done that. Besides, like the absolute best debaters in the world who have already been tracking flows for like 20 years.
I
Nobody
don't know what you're
wins
saying,
if they
bro.
don't track the
I think I 100% won this debate. That guy was on to nothing. Bro.
You can't.
Wait,
I mean,
he said when the other person is tracking the flow. That guy wasn't.
flow. Yeah, that guy was not tracking the flow. Flow
was not
tracking is literally all debate is. I like. You need to go look up like
the problem was I
like,
was tracking it with my head when I should have been tracking it on,
Yeah.
on a notepad.
Yeah. But I don't think you fully grasp what a flow is, and I think it's sort of this debate concept that's like because this is kind of a sport in a way.
Mhm.
But I think really what you should do is you should go to YouTube and you should look up. It's literally LD. Type in LD and then space and then just type in like debate tutorial. And there's this great series by a bunch of high schoolers.
Holy cow,
who
you guys
goes
got me
over
to 994 subscribers. 6 more subscribers left, bitch. That's what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Hell fucking yeah. I love you
LD's
all.
actually ableist. Don't learn how to flow from LD.
it. Wait, LD is ableist? What?
Yeah, because you have to stand and give speeches historically, and you're expected to wear suits, so it's
But
discriminatory.
yo,
of
like you
low-class
said earlier,
people.
if you could find me more people to
Nowadays.
debate, I'll do it. Fuck it. I'll debate. I love to debate.
Sure, bro, but you
There are
have to
whole
flow.
servers for this, bro. Just go on the servers.
Well,
No,
I debate
we
people.
want him
I
to
would watch
do
this
it
before you do
here.
anything else, though. Go ahead
do
and
do
watch
that.
that whole thing.
Okay, got you.
This is a whole this is chapter 1. This is like a mini doc.
LD's chopped. Don't do this. Just Google how to flow.
But I do debate
Damn.
people on my live stream. But what I meant by debate is like having these 1v1 events. That's what I meant.
Like an actual resolution, yeah. I mean, we have whole servers for this.
What I do is I just go into rooms and I'll debate people. I'll create my own room called Talk to ANCAPs, and people jump in.
Or nobody
Yeah,
got
but,
time
like,
to sit
there's-
through 45-minute time debates, bro.
Oh. Anyways,
Your entire philosophy is the child.
that's it, right, guys? I'm
Oh.
gonna head out. Have a good night, guys.
All right, see you, Sithis. I just want to talk to Bag, man. I don't know if we should move to VC or what.
All right, everyone. It was